Maybe. Hey, if you got this part of the video, you've got the live unedited edition, Home Gadget Geeks, Thursday night. It's the 1st of June, 2023. It's a little bit before 8 p.m. in the Central Time Zone, 7 Mountain, 6 Pacific, 9 Eastern. If you've joined us live, thanks for coming out. We are a few minutes early, and I see maybe a few of you out there. We'll get started here in just a second. If you got the recorded version on the recorded channel or on the live channel, hang tight. We'll get started here in just a second. Bob, are you at all regretting your move from the East Coast to the West Coast? Is there ever a moment where you go, man, I should have stayed on the East Coast?
I don't think. But the sun has not come out in like a week here, which is like a big deal. Like the sun, it's kind of, I don't know. I think you notice it more.
The marine layer has come in.
It's just like what do they call it here? They call it May gray, I guess, and June gloom, I guess they call it here. Yeah. So it hasn't been like the beautiful, Southern California that, everybody else is used to. But I would have to say that I still don't regret moving here. It's not like it's freezing cold or snowing or any of that. So, and we don't get the humidity as much as you guys do, I don't think.
No, not at all. Yeah. not even close. Not even close to what Ryan and I suffer through. You can head up, 10 miles to the mountains and be out of the marine layer in 10 minutes.
Yeah, my friend, she went camping like an hour away, and she's like, it's so sunny here. Yeah. Is it still cloudy in San Diego? I was like, yeah, it's cloudy all day today. So
yeah. Well, I head up to Temecula or, one of those areas, and all of a sudden you come out of the coast and you're like, whoa, this is what this is the sun. This is why I lived in Monterey for a lot of years. I'm up north, and it's same kind of deal. Fog rolls in at 3 p.m, and it's just foggy. Then it never got really warm, but it never got very cold either.
Yeah, I think that's the thing is for years living in Pittsburgh, the winter time was like it was like the worst season for me. So I'm just glad to not have that. Even if it gets semi-cold where you have to throw a hoodie on, it's not snow, and then you have all the slush and you gotta dig your car out. You don't have any of that stuff. So
Well, you say hoodie, I have my hoodie on. It's because my wife keeps this place chilly in the summer. I am so cold sometimes. So when I'm indoors in the summer, but I have hoodies and shorts. I have shorts on, so it's still kind of summer. Ryan, you and I were talking about weather. We live in the Midwest, lots of crazy weather. Are you getting much of it at this point?
Just some pretty heavy rain today. It tapered off in the afternoon, but I think we got another round coming through.
Yeah,
it's supposed to rain in the next couple of days. I'm going out of town though, and I'm gonna be gone for almost a week, and that grass is just like growing. Last week, I think I mowed twice, almost enough to do 3 times in the week. So I'm gonna try and mow tomorrow morning once the grass is just dry enough. Get out of town, and who knows what I'm coming back to.
Yeah,
you need to get one of those robots.
I was just gonna ask.
My neighbor has one. Two houses down.
Do you know?
And it does. It's orange and black, so maybe it works. WORX.
Do they have a robot lawnmower? I think. Maybe Husqvarna's is orange.
Maybe it's a Husqvarna.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of them.
But it's always going, right? It's always going around, and he gives us crap now about what are you guys doing out there now? All the neighbors that still manually mow, but every now and then I see it get caught and I just chuckle, or it's run out of battery and didn't make it back to the base. And I'm just like, and it can't do like the total edge right up against the curb up at the front of the yard. You can tell it doesn't go all the way to the edge. So he still has to do some manual work, but I mean, his yard's always the height he wants it.
Yeah. Yeah. I've thought about it, and I just enjoy mowing the lawn too much. I kind of want to control we put this fire pit in. We've been talking about it on the show. I put this big fire pit in. It took away a bunch of grass. So my lawn mowing job is even less time than it was before. And I'd have the perfect backyard for a robot. I just have a hard time justifying 6, they're more like 1,000.
Yeah. I saw one, and I think they're like 800 to 1,000.
Yeah.
He has a Works. Yeah, it's called a Works WORX Landroid. And it looks like their lowest price is $1,000.
Yeah. Yeah, you can just buy a lot of lawn care for $1,000. You know?
Sure can.
So you kind of go, man, I could have pros come out and do it, and that cover probably a couple seasons. Well, I don't know. I guess it depends on how expensive a lawn care guy is.
Yeah,
but yeah, I don't know. I keep thinking about it too, and then I'm like, I almost built one too, just for fun.
I remember that. I remember those discussions, and I just kept thinking, I'm like, man, what is he going to put together for this?
I had spec'd out a wheelchair, a wheelchair base that I could take the parts out of and put in this, because the key is to get that on top of a lawnmower, the bed of a lawnmower.
Sure.
And I had that all spec'd out, and then I started thinking about, now I have to get some parts manufactured for it. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. This is too much. This is too much work. I'll stick to putting PCs together and some of those kinds of things. I bought that Ugreen solar generator a couple weeks ago as they've got a new offering, 1200 watt capacity that I'm able to use, that I've been using as a UPS here internally. So, and that was, I was looking at I have 4 PCs down here, right? And so just running separate UPSs doesn't make any sense. So the UPS I really needed was $800 anyway. So I thought, I'm going to try one of these solar generators. And man, they're getting good at these things. Like, it will. I've been, of course, I have to unplug it all the time just to watch it cut over. It's got a 20 millisecond cut over. So I just unplug it and then just sit there and watch it. And you don't get the ridiculous beeping that you would get from the UPS kind of thing.
Right.
It just picks up the power and keeps running, and it gives you an hour meter on how much time you have. And with my whole setup, I get about an hour and 40 minutes of running time.
That's more than enough time to save all your stuff and
shut it down.
Yeah. Well, and in my case, I need time to plug the generator in. So that's, go out, pull the generator, plug it into the house, run the cord to the solar generator, plug it in, and it will resume and then start charging itself back up. And then once it's charged, it just runs its power pass through at that point. So one plug cut over for 4 PCs and all the monitors without skipping a beat.
Is that the Power Roam 1200?
Yeah, the Power Roam 1200. Yeah, from Ugreen.
Cool.
They've been, they've been manufacturing phone chargers for a while, and now they kind of came from the bottom and worked their way up. Marv was on the show when I talked about this. It's been a good purchase. It reset on me once when I first set it up, just by itself, but then it's been running for 2 weeks without any issues.
Yeah, we saw the Anchor ones. Remember, Ryan, at CES? Yep. They were really promoting those. I think for a lot of like RV type people or van life people, those work out quite well.
I saw a lot of them the last day of CES when you had left, and I went over to the other show floor. There was all sorts of them out there.
Yeah.
So
well, you kind of from a UPS standpoint, right? You start thinking okay, these things can cycle 3,000 times. I'm not cycling them at all at this point because so I may use them 4 or 5 times a year. I think I'm going to get on a regular cycle of once a month. Pull the plug, let it cycle down to about 25%, plug it back in, let it charge back up.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Just to kind of keep it cycling. But I should, in theory, get 7 to 10 years out of this device from a UPS standpoint. It'll degrade as it goes, but an hour and 40 for what I have, the current setup I have, like you said, it's plenty of time. An hour was what I was shooting for, to have, and so they work pretty well. And if I did get in a situation where I needed portable power, I could power everything down here, and it's just 3 plugs. I have everything going in, kind of routing into 3 heavy duty plugs. Just unplug those, take it with me. So pretty portable. Yeah. So It's been working. Marv, thanks for coming out. Tony, good to see you. Yeah, John, I'm convinced you and John Biggs are the same person, because you're never in the same place at the same time. So good to see you guys. Saw Ken a little bit earlier. Brian, thanks for coming out. Let's kick this thing off and get rolling here. Bob, Ryan, thanks for coming out. Appreciate you guys giving up a night.
Sure thing.
All right, let me do this. This is the Average Guy Network, and you have found Home Gadget Geeks show number 574 with guests Bob Buskirk and Ryan Kirshner, recorded on June 1st, 2023. Here on Home Gadget Geeks, we cover all the favorite tech gadgets that find their way into your home. News, reviews, product updates, and conversation, all for the average tech guy. I'm your host, Jim Collison, broadcasting live from the AverageGuy.tv studios here in a stormy Bellevue, Nebraska. Spring, summer storms, they all come here in Nebraska. Ryan feels it as well. But I think we're covered for tonight. No thunderstorms coming through. So anyways, we'll post a show with world-class show notes. And there'll be a few out at the AverageGuy.tv. Big thanks to Dan Lefebvre, who was on 2 weeks ago. I took last week off for my birthday, and we had a lot of fun. It took me a couple days to recover, but I appreciate Dan being on, and big thanks to our Patreon subscribers. If you're finding value in the podcast and you want to give back, join us on Patreon, theaverageguy.tv/Patreon. I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but Bob and Ryan are back with me tonight. Always great to have you. Gentlemen, welcome back to Home Gadget Geeks.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, good to be back.
Yeah, always good to have you. You guys are well. We spent some time in the pre-show catching up with you, so if you want to hear some of that banter, that's over on the pre-show channel, or that's over on the live channel on YouTube, and you can do that. But good catching up. Hey, before we get started, I know Computex. Computex.
Yes, Computex.
Yeah. Apparently, I have not been covering it, and it's a good thing you guys have, because there's been a lot of coverage out there. But let's just dive in with that. Bob, let me ask you. There's been a lot of coverage at thinkcomputers.org. What's been the best of it so far, do you think? What have you found?
I'll talk about, I think the big thing this year, and then I'll tell you about my favorite thing.
Yeah.
I do think the big thing this year is Gen 5 storage, or PCI Express 5.0 storage. All the companies, they had already announced a lot of products, but you're actually seeing them in person now. They have real working demos, where as back in January when we were at CES, we really didn't see any working demos. This, at Computex, they're showing all working demos. Everything is going to be ready to ship either this quarter or next quarter. And if your audience doesn't know, PCI Express 5.0 storage is the new M.2 NVMe, not standard, but it will be the standard going forward. And you can get anywhere, probably max speed around 1,400 megabytes a second, which is like 14 gigabytes a second transfer speed. And they're like little drives. Like this is one that I have right here, but just a little M.2 drive that will go right in your PC.
Is that got a pretty good heat sink on that?
Yeah,
thing?
this thing has oh yeah. So we talked about it. We just reviewed this because it just came out this past week. But yeah, this gets really hot. You need air kind of going over it, or it will overheat. That's kind of the drawback of these new drives at the start. A lot of companies are actually selling drives that have fans on them as well. So this one does not, and you will need, again, you need some type of air flowing over this, or it will overheat. So those are things to keep in mind. But I'm excited because I tell Ryan this all the time. I say I'm the super fast storage guy, and I want the fastest storage possible at all times. So that's what you're going to get with this. Now, you have to keep in mind that you do need a current generation system, either on the AMD side, like X670 or X670, X670E, and on the Intel side, Z690, Z790. So these are all brand new platforms that have come out in the past 2 years to even support this type of speed. But if you are on those platforms, it's likely that you are an enthusiast and you want something this fast. So I think that's kind of the big thing for me at the show. We're not in a period where we're launching a new CPU or GPU architecture yet. So that's typically the big kind of announcements that you would see at a show like this. But again, no new CPUs coming out or GPUs coming out as far as architecture, and we don't have really new motherboards or anything like that as well. So I think for me, it's the Gen 5 storage is the really cool thing at the show.
Fine. What about you?
Yeah, so I was thinking about this for a little bit, and I think what's actually been the most amazing to me are some of the advancements and changes in fans at Computex. And you're thinking, like, fans, like, how different can they get? I know they've added lights to them, but their companies are finally doing the thing where they're cleaning up the cabling that we have going on with these fans. So right now, if you're, someone like me or Bob, and we put the RGB lighting on our fans, we've got cables for that. We've got the PWM cable to, control the fan itself. And it just becomes a mess because you've got to run all those cables back to a controller or something. We're getting a lot better just integration of those fans with each other. So whether they click together and make their contacts that way without any cables in between them, or just simplifying things to a single cable between fans. We're seeing everything from, pogo pins and connectors that just kind of use tension to keep those connections together. We're even seeing Type-C connectivity between them, just kind of utilizing that USB Type-C connectivity. I even saw some fans from, and I'm trying to remember who it was, but in the middle of the hub where your fan blades come out, they have an LCD screen on them now. So we've seen LCD screens added to like the pump housings on all-in-one liquid coolers, but now we're seeing that type of screen on the fan itself. And so they're showing everything from RPMs of that individual fan to system temperatures to Pac-Man running across it, whatever you want. There's, unlimited amount of things you can put on them. So it may seem like an odd choice, but it's some really cool advancements that we're seeing this year. And I feel like this year we're also seeing just a lot more cool and more variety of products. I was talking to Bob the other day saying it feels like Computex is really back this year from the last couple of years. It just feels like the amount of news and new products that I've seen come out has been so much more than the last few years, which makes sense.
Yeah. Since I've been following you guys the last couple of years, 5, 6, 7 years, whatever that's been. How long have you been podcasting now, Bob? How long's the podcast?
Good question. At least 4 or 5 years, Ryan.
Okay.
I think.
Well, yeah, at least because I've
been
4 or 5.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's been at least that long. So say the last 4 years. It's I've kind of been surprised by that we're still building computers. Right. And it's in that, like, yeah. Let me ask you this question, Bob. Do you think computers get built, by individuals more today than they did 5 years ago? Are we seeing an uptick in trend, or is it just more boutique and you have a smaller group of enthusiasts, but they're buying all the high end stuff? Do you have a feeling for that?
I really think that more people are building their own PC now. With popularity of streamers and games, when Ryan and I started gaming, like PC gaming wasn't cool. It wasn't a thing that everybody did, and building your own PC wasn't a thing that everybody did. But you see these people on Twitch and YouTube, these popular streamers, and then some kid out there wants to build, he wants to be like his favorite gamer or streamer and build his own PC, right? So you have that whole group of people. You also had a large amount of people, who were forced to work from home, and they were given, a couple $1,000s from their company to be like, hey, buy yourself a PC, right? And a lot of people decided to not just buy, go to Best Buy and buy something. They wanted to build their own thing, so they did that. And then, like you said, there's also just enthusiasts like us that are building their own PC. They don't want something that's set to their own thing. They want to build it themselves. They want to put in the lights that they want. They want to do all that. So I think, especially compared to 5, 6 years ago, there is a lot more people building their own PCs, whether it's, again, just even for work, or if it's for gaming, or again, like if you're just an enthusiast. I think there's all those different segments now. Are
gamers showing their PC as part of the video? Like, I mean, Bob, you got one in the background there, and certainly they are works of art in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Are they showing up in the streams at least?
Yeah, there's a lot of streamers that will even do a collab too. So like a streamer would do a collab with somebody like us, or somebody that would build them their own, custom PC for gaming. And a lot of custom boutique shops will build PCs like specifically for streamers as well. And like a lot of them do have it like in their background, right? Like you'll see the PC.
Yeah, they're beautiful works of art. I was just thinking, we've every time we have you on, and we probably won't do it this time, but every time we talk about cases, and man, cases have come a long way as far as just being they're like a piece of furniture, right? I mean, they're
I mean, Bob's got one sitting right there, and you say furniture. I mean, it has wood on it. It has maple, right? Or
well, I guess we are going to talk about cases.
Just a little, just a little shot of it.
What is that, Bob?
So this is the brand new Fractal Design Terra. This whole thing's a PC, and it's so small. It's their new mini ITX system, 10.4 liter case, which is extremely small. I mean, you could really fit this in a backpack, but it's a fully fledged PC. Of course, Fractal's just making the case. I built a PC that's inside of here, but all aluminum, has the wood on the front. It's really cool.
Yeah, it's beautiful. What'd you put in there? What hardware is in there?
Like it's a Ryzen system. You can actually hold on.
I think you had like a 3700X.
Yeah, 3700X. I have a 3050 in here. I have SFX power supply, some RGB memory. Obviously, I don't have the system turned on, so you can't see it, but
we're glad that you don't. We don't want you to get shocked.
Yeah, and then so what's really cool about this case too is like the doors kind of pop up like that. So then on the opposite side,
are those magnetic? Is that like, do they magnetically close?
Yeah, sort of.
Yeah.
They kind of like lock into place.
Yeah.
On the other side, I have my graphics card, so you can.
Oh wow!
See, yeah. So, and it's like I said, all in this small little package that.
But that's a full size GPU.
Yeah.
Right,
So this
inside of there.
Yeah, this case will actually support the brand new RTX 4090 if you really wanted to put it in here, which is super cool.
And the power supply required.
Yeah, and the power supply required,
wow.
and you can even do water cooling in this case. Surprisingly,
jeez, what's that run for? What's that? What's a case like that retail?
It's $179 for the case, and they have it in.
Reasonable.
I have the silver one. They have a really cool green, like a jade color, and then they have a black one as well. Yeah.
That's funny. I said we weren't going to talk about cases.
Sorry, I just had to. You mentioned furniture, and I knew that thing had wood on it, and I just see it sitting there, and I'm like, we've got to at least mention it.
No, it's super.
Yeah,
cool.
no, it just came out yesterday. What was it? Yesterday? Yeah, yesterday.
Your post? You just posted about it?
The case itself.
Yeah, the case itself just came out yesterday. So.
Yeah. And do you have a post?
Yeah. So we have a full written review on the website as well as a video on our YouTube channel.
And just for folks who say, "Oh, now I want to check it out," tell us again what it is.
It's called the Fractal Design Terra, Terra.
Okay.
You can check it out. Yeah, super.
Yeah,
small.
no, it's beautiful. I mean, it just is. But as I look at all the parts, cases, we're going to talk about monitors here in a second. They've gotten really pretty beautiful as well. They're just not. They're not utilitarian anymore. I mean, some of them can be, but man, we are really they are really looking good. And the lighting, of course, is spectacular. You can make it do literally anything that you want. So some okay. Well, it was just a thought I had. I was like, it feels like there's more momentum around the self build or for PC builders. But you guys would know more than I. I mean, I built one this year, so.
I think there's a lot of good resources too, like PC Part Picker, right? We didn't have that, like Bob mentioned, when we were building those first gaming PCs. Now you can throw these lists together, PC Part Picker. It's going to show you your incompatibilities, your power usage, and it's going to recommend you and say, hey, you need more power, a larger power supply for this combination of CPU and GPU. Everything like that, and tracks all the prices. So those resources, I think, have made it a little easier as far as figuring out what components to put inside of that build as well.
No, it's right. It's right. My build, by the way, love that thing. It just does. It's so awesome to have, and so appreciate you guys' help with that. Bob, I want to go back to these Gen 5 PCI Express storage. That drive that you were holding up, what's the size on that thing? How much memory?
This one is 2 terabytes. Most of the drives you'll see come out will be available typically 1 terabyte, 2 terabyte, 4 terabytes.
Okay.
Probably later this year you will see 8 terabyte drives, but there'll be few and far between.
Yeah. What's the price point? So for 1 and 2, what are they?
I think probably I have to look at the pricing on this.
Because Gen 4 is dirt cheap right now. Right?
Yeah, so I think like a 1 terabyte, you'll probably be around the 150 range. 2 terabytes around 225, and then probably 4 terabyte is going to be more in the $400 or $500 range.
Yeah, but even that, I mean, for the Gen 5s, that's the 1 and 2 terabyte level, that's pretty reasonable. The one, and you can get now, like I think you can get a 2 terabyte Gen 4 for $100, like $900, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, the prices have gotten. So, if you're listening to this and you've been waiting and you're a value buyer like I am, you don't want to miss right now for storage. Like you should be picking up. I don't know if you're going to find it too much cheaper. Although, how long does it typically? So, for Gen 5 to kind of fully roll out and kind of consume the market, what is that? What do you think that normally takes, Bob?
I mean, that's going to be years.
Okay.
Because again, only a certain amount of platforms support it.
Yeah.
Right.
But by the end of the year, a bunch will, right?
Yeah, but we're not going to see new platforms from AMD or Intel till like the end of the year. Okay. And again, these currently run too hot that you're not going to be able to throw this in a laptop either. Okay. There's just not the heat constraints aren't there yet. As this platform matures, you'll see that stuff sort of happen. But I think even Gen 4 isn't necessarily mainstream yet. I mean,
right. I was gonna say,
really?
It felt like we were on Gen 3 for quite a while, right? Yeah. Storage, and 4 still feels new, even to me. I feel like we're kind of getting shrunk. It's getting squeezed by 3 and 5, just its age span. But I think we'll be on 4 for quite a while for mainstream.
Yeah.
Bob, those run, you mentioned it, 14, 15 gigs per second. Do you really need, like,
I mean, are you asking me or are you asking the normal person?
Well, I'm going to ask you, then I'm going to ask Ryan. Do you need 15? Like, why do you need 15 gig? And maybe you do, but why do you need it?
Like, I think that the actual practical application would be somebody who's working in media, some professional commercial video editor who's working with like 8K files that they need the fastest speed possible, right? I mean, for somebody like me, I don't, even in my, I'm editing 4K video, I don't need that speed. You're not going to theoretically use that. But there will be applications where people do need that type of speed. I just like having the fastest speed. It's not going to be noticeable. Even if you compare Gen 4 to Gen 5, in most cases, it's not going to be noticeable. But I like, I'm an enthusiast. I like being on the fastest platform possible. Yeah. But there will be people who will take advantage of it. Again, in the more media, maybe like 3D modeling type space. I think that will be where people actually really use it.
And just so for reference, Gen 4 max about 7 gig per second.
Yeah, about technically it's like 7.87 technically.
Okay. Yeah. Close. 7 is a good, and it doubles to 14. That's kind of how I remember it. I put a 1 terabyte Western Digital, their high end, to take advantage of the full speed on that. Mm-hmm. And I think, I don't know, I probably paid $100 for that back in November when I bought it, right? And now the 2 terabytes going for that price, or maybe maybe just a little bit more than that. Ryan, what do you need? Like, is there anything you can think of that you would need 15 gig per second or 14 gig per second to?
Outside of Bob's scenario, no, right? Yeah. Like I'm just running Gen 4 on my main drive here, and I don't have a real use case for that amount of bandwidth, right? The IOPS to me are more important, of like how quick can it access pieces of files everywhere on the drive, as opposed to just a raw transfer of large amounts of data, right? So Gen 4 is fine for me. Honestly, Gen 3 is still fine for a lot of people as well. So I have a mix of storage in the system. I've got everything from a Gen 4 drive, NVMe drive. I've got a Gen 3 NVMe drive, and then I have 2 SATA-based, SSD still. And Bob's over there probably shaking his head going, "What are you doing, man?" Yes, I know I could replace them with a 2 terabyte Gen 4 drive
Yeah.
for for nothing, but I just haven't. So
Well, and I had a 1 terabyte SSD sitting around, so I put that in there just as backup, storage for it.
Yeah.
It's fast enough, right? From that standpoint. Bob, would you say anything more?
I would
on that?
say, I think for people who may be looking at upgrading their storage, I always say you'll notice a difference between a normal hard drive, like a thick, you'll notice a difference between a normal hard drive and a 2.5-inch SSD. And then you will notice a difference between that 2.5-inch SSD and an NVMe drive, whether it's Gen 3, Gen 4, Gen 5, doesn't matter. So that's kind of thing. So if you're on, the big hard drive, big, thick, 3.5-inch hard drive, if you upgrade to an NVMe drive, an M.2, you'll instantly notice a difference. Like your Windows load time will probably be cut in half, if not more than that.
Yeah. Bob, you also have an article out there at thinkcomputers.org about an SSD in RAID for Gen 5 running at 23 gigs per second. So so tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So let me bring it up here. So MSI, who makes a bunch of different types of components, but they put two of their brand new, they're called their Spadium M570 Pros. They put two of those in RAID. They need an external card to even do this. It won't run on like a normal motherboard. But yeah, they put them in RAID, which depending on which type of RAID you do, you could theoretically double your speed almost or get close to it. So they put it in RAID 0. And 22 gigabytes a second read, 23 gigabytes a second write, which is insane. And the fact that, you can see how big the coolers are on those as well, that, nothing was overheating on those in that type of configuration.
Those are little tiny NVMe with these big giant fans on them. Like
that's how they have to keep them cool for this first. I call this like the first generation of Gen 5, and we had the same issues with Gen 3 and Gen 4. The first generation, they run hot. Yeah.
So if you were going to get into that, but you wanted stability, you might want to wait for the next round, right?
Yeah, I would say, and it has a lot to do with the firmware too. So the firmware is the software that's running on the drives, and most of the drives that you'll see are based on this one controller, the Phison E26, and that firmware is constantly being updated. So they could, continue to update it where it addresses a lot of those issues. But again, as the entire platform, gets more mature, you will, see where you don't need those big heat sinks, where you don't need the active cooling fans.
Although that's good for Ryan because he likes anything cooling. So
I do. You're not wrong. We were talking in our chat last night, about these Gen 5 drives, and there's one of the people in chat mentioned the Corsair water block, and that he had considered upgrading, and putting a water block on there. And it's just funny, the size and efforts of coolers that we're going to keep these things cool, and just kind of crazy, especially for this first generation.
Such a tiny space, such a small space, not a lot of surface area to work with. The challenge is going to be there, and they may have to rethink the form factor at some point and say, this made sense when we first started going this way, but based on cooling needs, we may need to flatten this thing out or widen it out a little bit to get more surface area.
I think the problem is that you run because it is on the motherboard, there's only a certain amount of space. And I think a lot of motherboard manufacturers now, they're, the first time when we saw NVMe slots on motherboards, we had like one, you get one. Right. Now boards are having 4, right? So I think they're doing quantity over as far as making that drive actually longer and having more surface area.
Well, maybe even giving it cooling priority on the board. Some of those
I think you may see that. I think you may see that. Yeah.
They'd be on the underside of the motherboard, and that may not be, while it's a compact spot, in some cases that might be right up against metal or pretty close, right? And you're not going to get a fat cooler in there or a fat fan to be able to get rid of that heat. I think the board I have, or that I bought back in November, I think that supports 1 Gen 4 and 1 Gen 3. Would that sound right?
Yeah.
Okay. So not that I would necessarily make a jump right at this point to Gen 5, but we'll have the links to both those articles we were talking about, both the Gen 5 review and that crazy looking RAID configuration. Those are over at thinkcomputers.org, and I'll put those links in the show notes as well. Anything else on that before I want to
I
change
think that's
the
basically
subject?
it. I mean, it's the fastest, technically the fastest you can get on a normal consumer platform, which is pretty awesome
and fairly reasonably priced. Like a graphic
it's not
design
insane.
could move to that platform for storage today, get immediate benefit out of it with very little, without having to do very much, right?
Yeah.
If the board supported it. And do they have, could you buy, so say I had a Gen board back, could I buy a PCI card that would support Gen 5 and give me that? No, it has to be built in the motherboard.
So the motherboard has to support Gen 5.
Okay.
Whether it's on, so you could get an expansion card if the motherboard didn't have the M.2 slot, but it has to have Gen 5 on one of the PCI Express slots.
Okay. Well, some interesting things coming with that, and I think if you want to be cutting edge, you're going to pay for it with heat. There may be cooler options here coming in the future. Speaking of cooler options, what is up with 4090s? Like, what's going on in the world of GPUs right now? Because for a while, I think the last time I had you guys on, it was a mess. They were just starting to release them, and it was kind of, you could get them, but you couldn't get them. Anyways, I just remember it being a mess. It seems like it's calmed down, and have prices come down? Bob, where are we at?
I mean, the prices are pretty much the same as when they launched. I mean, as far as on the NVIDIA side, you have the RTX 4090, you have a 4080, you have a 4070, or you have a 4070 Ti, then you have a 4070, then you have a 4060 Ti, and then the 4060 is also coming as well. And that price range goes from what, Ryan, 1600 all the way down to 400?
Yeah, 1600 for the 4090 and 400 for the 4060 Ti right now.
I think at the end of the day, for a lot of people, the prices are still too high, even for that $400 card. I mean, it's not great, I'd say, compared to, Ryan and I have been, buying and talking about graphics cards for like a very long time. And we just remember, at least it seemed in the past, that we were getting a little more value from these type of cards, whereas we just don't feel like we're getting as much value. There is a lot of choice out there on both NVIDIA and AMD's side, and you can go to the store today and buy cards, which is definitely a good thing. You have Intel also on the lower end as well, and they're continually updating things to make their cards better too, with software and things like that. But I think for anybody who's upgrading or building a new PC, you have options that are within reason. I mean, $400 on the low end is, I would say, within reason for a graphics card. It's not like, you're in the $700-800 range just to buy a graphics card. But again, there are, like I said, there are a ton of options out there.
Ryan, you talked to me off the ledge a couple times as I bought a 4060 Ti. I paid $399 for it, $400. Let's say that's I think so. That probably be about the same price today, right?
You bought a 3060 Ti,
3060 Ti. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Sorry about that. Yeah. Because that wasn't out yet. Well, 30. So would that have gone down in price now if I were to get that?
You would think so, but no. Oh. Not really.
Yeah, the older cards are keeping.
Older cards have not. Yeah, they haven't dropped off like you would expect, unfortunately.
Yeah, they've stayed the same. Well, okay. So would you have talked me? You talked me off the ledge a couple times. I was like, maybe I'm going to buy more than I need, and you're like, for what you do. Would you give me the same advice today if I were shopping for that, or would you have, with a 4060 being $400, or is it $4 or $6?
$400 for the 4060 Ti, and that's for like the Founders Edition card, right? There's some reference cards, or not reference, just add-in board partner cards that are going to be that same price, and then they also have versions where they can make them with a little more, overclocking and improved cooling, and have a little higher price point. But I'd actually possibly steer you towards AMD, especially in the next couple. I don't remember the exact date, but they have one coming out, the RX 7600, and its price point is going to be $269. So that's going to be a really nice card, I think, as far as value. We don't know the performance just yet, but I anticipate it being a pretty good option for a lot of folks, because their next card up is kind of their previous generation, a 6750 XT. It's $420 on that card, and it's still a really nice performing card. But yeah, I would talk you down from going with a 70 level series card, either on the 3000 series or the 4000 series, and drop you down, or consider going with this AMD card about to come out.
Yeah, I appreciate it, because I really haven't used it that much. Now, listen, I've done some flight simulator. Yeah. I have played some games on it. It is my video box. It will process. I mean, the M1 processes the podcast stuff really, really well for what I do. I could do it on either box. It's nice to have a backup for me for that. Like if I needed to, if the M1 failed, the mini failed, I could easily move everything over to the new box, bring that up online, and be ready to go within a couple hours. So it's great having that backup. Bob, would you talk me off if I said, hey, I want to upgrade to a 4060 Ti for that same price point, would you talk me off the ledge, or would you say go for it?
Yeah, I wouldn't think for what you do that you need a current gen, like a new generation card. It just doesn't seem like that would be something that you could spend a little bit extra money that you are gonna spend on that card. You could get a better SSD or something that you'll see. With an SSD, you can kind of see, like I said, you'll notice your boot up times faster and your apps load faster. That would be better for you than getting a current gen or new gen graphics card.
And one thing I'll add to that is there's the jump from, let's say, a 3060 Ti to 4060 Ti, right? There's not a really large percentage performance gain between the two on standard like rasterization 3D graphics. But the thing that really helps the 4060 Ti is the implementation of DLSS 3.0 from NVIDIA that kind of does some of that extra frames in there, and you can really get a nice boost in performance depending on the game you're playing and things like that. But if you're not going to take advantage of that, moving from like that 3000 series to the 4000 series just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
I've really tried to get into gaming. I did buy the Oculus headset.
I was curious.
I have paired them, and I've done that, and it works great. Like I have zero complaints. It is plenty of power for what I need. You guys nailed it as far as getting it right. It just hilarious. I was trying to buy more, and both of you were like, I don't think so. I think you could. Yeah. I think you can. I think you can bring that down some. So, but it in some ways, I have seen some. I thought maybe GPU prices were coming down or coming back a little bit. I have seen some deals, Newegg deals, or some of those kinds of things from time to time, but it doesn't sound like. Sounds like it's stabilized, but not really gone down for most people. But you can find them now.
Yeah, exactly. Stores have them in stock, right? You can go, to your Micro Center or Newegg or wherever you want to go and get a card.
Okay. No, the other thing we always talk about, and this is one of these areas where I think the pricing is just like, and you guys know I'm a monitor. I love monitors, right? Mm-hmm. And so, I've got now an ultra wide and a 27-inch 1440 curved monitor that I love. I just put the two side by side. One, the ultra wide I work off of. The gaming one is perfect for watching videos on and gaming and some of those kinds of things. But it seems like right now monitors are getting better at the same price. Is that, Bob, would you say that's a true statement? Like they keep making jumps in quality and in components, but not necessarily they're not getting that much more expensive. That's what it seems like to me.
Yeah, I would say, we have new technologies, mini LED, OLED technologies where you will pay a premium, But for like the normal display, that has the same type of tech that's been in monitors for a while, yeah, the prices have gone down. It's just like anything. I mean, it's all about the glass, right? It's all about the actual glass, and just like our TVs. Remember how much a 60-inch flat screen, cost a few years ago compared to now. Yeah, I mean, you're getting really good deals. You can get, like the monitor that's in front of me is a 49-inch. I mean, there was a time where you couldn't find a 49-inch ultra wide for under $1,000, and you can pick some of these up for $600 now, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah. Brian asked a good question. He says, have you found that just about all the components are reasonably in good supply? Think about just a couple of years ago when you couldn't find anything. Do you guys feel like the supply chain is fairly normal?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's pretty much you can get anything. Like Ryan said, go to your local store, or you can pick them up online. There's not much that you can't get, I would say, as far as PC components.
I mean, like mid to late 2020 through early 2022, in my day job, right, I was having multiple month lead times on just standard 19 and 22-inch monitors for desktops and laptops, right? Like some things were almost up to 6-month lead times to get things. I haven't made an order in a while, but now we're back to like, oh, it's going to ship today, if I order early enough in the morning, or it's going to ship tomorrow. And that's even if I wanted 50 or 100 of them, right? And they're going to ship and they're going to be here next week type of thing. So I've really seen an improvement there, which has made my life at work so much smoother to, anticipate lead times for, needs there. So yeah, I think I don't know that there's any component right now that's tough to get that I can think of.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that
memory's super cheap too right now.
Yeah,
as well.
everything. I mean, the only thing is like newer products, right? With things that go through custom, sometimes there's issues at like the port, and it won't get into Newegg, or it won't get into Amazon initially, but then you'll see it in like a week. But beyond that, there's no real issues with anything.
With memory being cheap, with hard drive prices getting reasonable, I think, right? With motherboards fairly stable, and you're able to find them and get them and fairly reasonably priced. Chips, Bob, you mentioned chips we're in a stable spot with them. There's no new announcements, and so those prices, in fact, the one I bought came all the way back down to what I bought it for back in November, and then I think it was even a little bit cheaper at one point. So is now another sweet time to maybe put, besides the GPUs, which they're not more expensive at least, but would now be a good time to put a system build together, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, this is a great time. I would say the best times is always in between launches, right? So like I had said, we're in between a CPU launch, we're in between a GPU launch. And currently there are really great prices on DRAM products. So that includes SSDs and your memory. Like we also said, everything's available, right? So the problem before was, everything was like decently priced, but then you couldn't get things. You had to wait for your power supply. You had to wait for your graphics card to come in. And it could have been months. And now that everything's available and the prices are pretty, steady, it's a great time.
Pretty stable.
Yeah.
It just seems reasonable and stable, and maybe a good time if you were thinking about. Would it be, do you think if you were buying right now, well, Bob, it's probably not fair to ask you this question because you'd say yes to it. It's an easy one. So let me ask Ryan this question.
Yep.
Ryan, you're upgrading right now. Do you go Gen 5? Do you go the higher ends of the Intel or the AMD side of things? Do you, I put 128 gig of RAM in my PC when we did this because I knew, because the last two, I had to go find it to upgrade it to its max. So I was kind of like, yeah, with it being as cheap as it is, do you think, would you be tempted to go high end on, high end? Would you be tempted to do some of that right now, or would you go back value?
If I hadn't have bought my 5800X 3D just in November to upgrade my system, so I took advantage of AMD's AM4 platform, right, where I could swap from a 3800X CPU to a 5800X 3D. If I wouldn't have done that in November, I would say yes, I would probably move on to AMD's or Intel's latest platforms and go with a newer GPU as well. 5th gen. I'd probably stick with a 4th gen solid state drive right now, just because I don't want to deal with the possibility of having to keep that thing cool and not doing it well enough. And I don't want to liquid cool it, and I don't want a huge heat sink hanging off of it. So I would probably stick with Gen 4 to start, knowing that I could upgrade to like one of these later revisions of a Gen 4 drive when they become more stable. But right now, I'm happy with my previous gen system. I've got a 2000 series GPU in here, so I am looking to update that in this build, but I'm also looking to shrink this build down. I have one of those enormous cases with tons of cooling and everything. I'm looking to get something smaller, kind of like the case that Bob has there. I saw another case at Computex that I'm kind of interested in, so it's got me thinking again, going mini ITX, but staying on this AM4 platform from AMD and not moving up to the newest platform, to be honest. So we'll see. I don't know. I never commit though. So
yeah, he doesn't.
He sounds like me. I listen, I really struggled with it. We talked about it.
Yeah.
And then I'm still like, I in Amazon, I built my whole PC build and then put it in the save it for later section so that I could kind of monitor the price of it as it went. Cause I was like, darn it, I want to make sure, and actually, we've said this before. It was a really good buy. November was a really good time to buy. Right. And with the Black Friday deals and some of the other things. And then the price came back, and then it's slowly been inching its way back. And so if you're listening and you've been holding off, now maybe a time. Would Bob, let me ask you this question. Would you buy a built unit at this point? Is there anything, would you buy a PC that was built for you from one of those,
I mean, I personally wouldn't, because I would like to build my own, but we've always talked about how pre-builts are just as good as building your own PC. There's people that don't know how to do it or don't want to learn how to build their own PC. They don't have the time, and it's just convenience, right? You can pick up, you can go to Best Buy, or you can go to Micro Center or whatever, and you can walk in the store, buy the PC, go home, plug it in, and you're good to go, right? Whereas, you order parts, you wait for the parts to come in, and then you have to build the whole thing, and that's usually a couple-hour process, and you have to do all that. Well, Ryan and I enjoy doing that. A lot of people may not. And the pre-builts are going to have everything that the system you build yourself is going to have, right? It's going to have, and again, a lot of them, you can completely spec out the way that you want, right? You can pick the graphics card, you can pick the CPU, you can pick how much memory you have, you can pick, how many hard drives you want, you can do all of that kind of stuff. So,
and you also get like that support, right? That if you're building it yourself, you're like, all right, I am my own support, and now I have to work with Asus on the motherboard and Gigabyte on my graphics card and Corsair on my memory, or I can call up CyberPower or another integrator and that builds them and say, hey, this thing's not working, fix it.
Well, Jim just asked that question in chat. He said, if you don't buy a pre-built from, say, Dell and use their support tool, how do you automate driver and BIOS updates? Right, to Ryan, that's to your point. When you're putting these PCs together and they're all kinds of different manufacturers, how do you streamline that?
I think most everything is run through your motherboard, right? And with all the new motherboards now, though, actually, as soon as you install Windows, like your Windows boots up for the first time, it will ask you if you want to install the auto driver installer. And through that tool, it will update your drivers and your motherboard BIOS. You're really not going to be updating any other BIOSes like on your graphics card or anything like that. So that, that tool will update your everything that's on the motherboard as far as drivers. And then like your graphics card driver, you can do manually, but it's also updated through Windows now too. So, Windows Update will update your graphics card driver to the latest one whenever it updates as well. So it's pretty streamlined these days. It's not like you're going to some obscure website and downloading some weird file to update driver or BIOS anymore.
Yeah, their driver packages for those mainstream motherboards cover everything. And then if you have an NVIDIA, and I think AMD does the same thing, they've got software that you can install that'll tell you as well, hey, this is up to date. So So Jim, you're right. Jim Shoemaker, you are right. I think it's more complicated, but I don't know if it's that much more complicated. You know, you're talking about your motherboard drivers and then maybe the software drivers for your graphics card to make sure that's probably where you get the most lift.
And
I can't ever remember ever updating a BIOS on a hard drive or
Yeah.
right. I mean, that just doesn't happen, right? Ryan?
Yeah, I'm one of those people that is pretty much a set it and forget it unless there's like a critical like security vulnerability or something's broken and there's a fix for the BIOS. Like I was running on not an old BIOS for my motherboard, but I just upgraded it about a month ago and took advantage of some extra features in there, and it actually improved my clock speeds on my CPU as well as the temperatures for it, and is actually reduced the power of it. So that's an advantage of that. But I'm a person that if it's not broken, I'm not going to adjust it. Now, with my video card driver, though, if you're wanting to play the latest and greatest game, right, NVIDIA or AMD, they're always tweaking those newest drivers for those latest games and optimizing them so you get the best performance. So that's one where you do want to. But outside of that, me personally, I'm like, if it's not broke, I'm not touching it.
Bob, are you from a maintenance standpoint on the PCs that you do run on a regular basis? Do you keep pretty close track it, or do you set it and forget it like Ryan?
Yeah, so like for my personal PC that I use, I do keep, my graphics card driver up to date. As far as like motherboard BIOS stuff, kind of like what Ryan said, if there's an update that fixes a security thing, or like there's a new feature that they've developed that they put into the BIOS, I'll go ahead and update it. But if not, yeah, motherboard BIOS kind of stays the same. But I keep all my other drivers kind of up to date, especially when it comes to graphics card drivers. If you're working in like Adobe applications, you want your graphics card drivers up to date. And obviously with games, the same type of thing. So, I mean, that's all automated through NVIDIA. Like if you have their GeForce Experience software on your PC, it will tell you have a new driver update, and you just hit install and you're kind of good to go.
It takes good care of you.
Yeah.
I that's why I always break something when it there's a BIOS when it's just optional, and then I'm like, oh sure, why not? And then I always regret it. I'm like, I should have done that. Why can't I leave it alone? It does nothing for me. At least I think it does nothing for me. So yeah, that's usually when I break it. I want to circle back on the monitor discussion. And Bob, I want to ask you this question. Do we need flat monitors anymore, just to be honest, or could everything be curved? Why would you want a flat monitor in 2023?
I think for a lot of businesses, flat monitors make sense. I personally, yeah, I guess. Yeah. I mean, I personally, and I think for, I guess not so much monitors, but I mean, flat TVs, especially for like if you're at a bar, you don't want it to be curved to just standing right there, right?
True.
Yeah. Presentation monitors and things like that. But I mean, I prefer curved. You're sitting, it's made so you are immersed in whatever you're doing. And I think that's awesome. But I mean, like anything, I mean, the flat monitor has its, and there's people that do prefer them. They don't want the curve, right? Ryan's one of those people.
What?
Yeah.
Why,
absolutely.
Ryan? Why?
I don't know. Maybe it's so my setup is, I have 3 monitors, one main one in front of me that's centered, and then one to the side, and it's angled towards me. So in theory, it's kind of a curved setup. But when I've used them, I just don't prefer that curve. I don't know what it is. Maybe if I had one, and I'm sure I would get used to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But right now, like the sometimes increased cost depending on the size, right, just doesn't make sense for me.
What I've found, we have 34-inch ultra wides, Dell ultra wides at work. So that's your kind of your main work, and then I like my laptop screen as my second monitor there. There's another office I go to where I have that same screen and then a second in portrait mode, because I have to work on this application that just shows up better in portrait, right? But Bob, I didn't think about the flat screen from a presentation standpoint when we think of a group of people. Like the curved screen is ideal for one person in front of it, right? But then as soon as you got multiple people, I guess I didn't.
Yeah, and just like how you said with having something in portrait, I mean, a curved screen is not going to look that great in portrait unless it's really designed to do
Right,
that.
right.
So
Yeah.
that's another thing.
The other thing I have found on the 34-inch models that they don't, you don't get a full 1080p split between the two, right?
Yeah.
It's a smaller version of it. And I think most Windows applications and websites are optimized for HD or 1080p.
Mhm.
And so you get this more when you try to divide them equally, I don't know if it's as good of as an experience.
Do you have your
No?
what do they call that in Windows, Ryan? The zoom or the
scaling?
application scaling turned
I
on?
have it set at the recommended, whatever
What is the
that
recommended?
is. I'd have to go back and look.
I would just set
I'm always 100.
Yeah, if you set it at 100, on a 34-inch, what's the resolution on the screen? Do you know?
I'd have to look at that one too.
Yeah, because the 34 should put you two screens side by side pretty well, depending on the resolution.
It does okay, but it's not as good. I have two monitors side by side that I work with here for the work stuff.
Yeah.
Two 1080p monitors get you more real estate than them combined on a ultra wide. At least the ultra wides that I have. So it just is. It's a little and I could mess around with some of the scaling and then it's too small. I'm kind of
I don't know. It should be good. I think in a 34. Again, depending on the resolution that it is, you should turn the scaling off. You should turn the scaling off. And
I'm just gonna say, I think for me, the next set of monitors I buy that way need to be 42 or wider. Just for me. Yeah. That's just.
I have the 49 and I love it. Right, and I couldn't imagine going back to something smaller than this.
Right.
Just because, especially for work. So I have three windows that are perfectly sized for me, and it's for productivity standpoint and doing our podcast. I have you guys over here, and I have whatever I'm looking at here, and I can have something over here. Like it's ultimate productivity monitor for me.
Yeah. Well, for me, it rolls around this way, and I think I could put a 49 on this side for work, just on the bottom layer, and it would be so great. I don't know why I like that. I like screen real estate so much, but I just love it. I love how.
Is it still 9 on your desk?
10. I have 10 now. Yeah,
that's crazy. I have one.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah,
and I
10,
feel like
11 actually. 11. Sorry, it's 11.
Oh my gosh,
that's too many monitors.
Well,
you just need one.
No, Bob, that's blasphemy. That would be like me saying to you, "Hey, look, a Gen 2 NVMe would be just fine for what you do." Like you wouldn't say yes to that. You'd be like, "No, you
just need a KVM and you're good."
One of them, just to be fair, one of them's the home automation touchscreen. I've turned my Surface Pro into it primarily runs all the home automation. It just sits down here in a dock. Don't do much with it besides turn things on and off. I have a dedicated TV or a dedicated box that just when I want to watch TV, it's got a Fire Stick in it, and I just use it for news or watching TV down here. And then I have a camera monitor that sits up here. Okay. That's got all the the Ring cameras on it that I can just look up and see what's going on out there. So take 3 out of the 11 right there, but I use the rest. I got weather going on one because I'm a visual guy. I don't want to open it. I just want to look to it.
Okay.
I just want it there. Yeah.
See, I'm the opposite. Like I want, I do have 3 windows here, but the less distractions, right? Like my phone, and all my notifications when I'm working are off. Like whatever I'm working on, that's what I need. I don't need to see something over, I don't need a window for Twitter over here that I get distracted and want, see something. I just work, gaming. That's it.
Yeah. And Ryan's just wrong. Brian said never tried using a curved monitor, but thinking about it, when I work a lot in Excel, I don't think I'd want one for that type of work. And actually, I use it lately. I've been having to do a work process, and I'm in Excel a lot. That's never been my job, and I love it on a curved monitor, and I love it super wide where I can
all
see
the cells.
all.
I can see that absolutely.
Yeah, no, that works well. Tony says he doesn't want one either. I don't know what's wrong with you people. And then Jim says, but Jim, if you buy a bigger monitors, you won't be able to fit as many on your desk. That is true. Numbers do matter. And that is true. But basically, if I got a 49 like you, Bob, it would replace 2 monitors.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I always thought about stacking 2 49s, but I just don't see the need for it.
What?
Yeah, just
that would be awesome.
It would, and I could totally do it. And you know, I think it for me too. It's like, so I have this camera here. Like, where would I mount the camera? Because the camera sits above the first 49, and it's in a little bit, you know, from the top of here. So like, where would that camera go for our podcast?
Yeah.
I wouldn't have a space for that. And
what about the smaller curved one on top? Like, so 49 and then like the 30, whatever.
The 34.
Yeah.
I don't need anything there.
See, I want them all around me and then going up.
Yeah, he needs the cockpit
a sphere. Yeah.
A dome. I need a monitor dome.
Well, like eventually we're supposed to have, like, what was that movie with Tom Cruise where you could just like,
Minority Report.
Yeah, Minority Report. That's what, you know, when is that? Like, I want to see that at Computex. That's what I want to see. Because I'll be like, you can just take all my money and that's what I want. Those things.
Yeah. Yeah. I just like, I'm with you, Bob. I'd prefer every surface was a display.
Yeah. Well, they're just gonna, you know, eventually they'll just put them in our eyes.
Right.
And then we can just, you know.
Well, in VR is this way today. I can put that headset on and make
you screen
that
everywhere.
whole thing a giant screen.
Yeah.
And I don't find like even there, I don't find like making one giant screen is good for me. I want 4 monitors there that I can have different things running on. And then I can grab them and pull them in if I want to make them larger or push them back out, you know, or just look at them, which is funny. In VR, I'll actually turn my head to look at, you know, you're like, you don't need to do that, Jim. You could just, you know, but it's just funny how we're conditioned to, you know, to do those kinds of things. So, well, I don't think you can have enough. Brian says if you don't need VR, if you have monitors, you know, 360 degrees around you, and that's true. Tony's old school. He says I have one 25-inch monitor and a 20-inch monitor from 2006, and I've got some old monitors here. Don't get me wrong. They're not all new. I just repurposed everything. The 11 I have on my desk, this one right here, that would be 12. I just don't use it. It's just sitting there as a backdrop at this point. And I've got one over there kind of waiting to be used, and they're older ones, right? You just kind of keep them around. I can't let monitors go until they die. I can't.
I gave a bunch of monitors away when I moved to California because I was like, I'm not taking all these, you know, all these monitors with me.
Yeah. Well, we were talking about, you know, setting up your shed to be you know, an alternative place, whether it's a smoke shack or a whiskey shack or something, some of those things. I should just go in the shed and just line the roof with monitors and all the way down the side. That'd be awesome.
Really
I'd never use it.
Cool.
Let's be clear. I'd never actually use it, but it would look super cool. Guys, let's shift gears one last time. Think about what's going on with the podcast. Anything as you guys think about what's ahead. We talked a lot about Computex, and you've got a lot of coverage of that. If folks are interested in going back and seeing some of those, head over to thinkcomputers.org. But what's coming ahead, Bob?
We have a lot of stuff into review. I have some really cool keyboards that are like Kickstarter projects. So I have I have 2 of those that will be coming up on the website. We have new cases. Ryan has some new AIO coolers. There's a lot of stuff because Computex happens. We see all this stuff, and then like 2 months later, all these products are actually available. Mm-hmm. So all the stuff you're seeing will get around, you know, end of summertime. You'll see a lot of this stuff. We'll be able to get our hands on it.
Do you guys think you're the #1 alternative keyboard review site on the internet? Because
I would no, not at all. There's people that like solely do keyboards.
Really?
Yeah, that's so like there's YouTube channels that are like solely custom keyboards and stuff like that.
Like all these brands you never hear of, and
no, we do a decent amount of keyboards, but ours are mainly focused towards gaming. We do a couple like boutique kind of style keyboards from time to time, but there's people that are they're far more knowledgeable than us. There's a ton. I don't even know the YouTube channels, but there's a bunch out there that you can find. But that's why I like what we do, because like we can check out that stuff every once in a while. But we're mainly focused on like gaming stuff, stuff that you would find in like a Best Buy or things like that.
You're a great companion to this show in the sense that you go deep on the PC side and gaming and some of those kinds of things. You guys, a lot of the listeners here, they can, for me, it's an area, like I'm probably not going to buy most of what you guys talk about, but I find it very interesting. And then you were great in giving me advice and like, oh, hey, so for you, get this. But I'm sure I've got listeners that are hardcore gamers or that, want to pick up some of those things. So, and you have so much variety, like you really, anybody can find anything to get excited about on the site. So you guys cover a lot. Yeah. Some good stuff. I just am always surprised. I'm like, wow. And there's another kind of keyboard that you can, that you could get, I'm a plain Jane, Apple. Let's see if I can, I'm a plain Jane Apple guy, right? It's on the keyboard. Whoops. Yeah. There you go. Bob, what is that one?
This is the IQNX. This is the A80 Explorer. I've had this. So I've reviewed probably like 20 keyboards since I've got this one, but this one just always ends up back on my desk. I love the way it looks. It's kind of hard because I haven't actually plugged in, but it's just a really cool design, really cool colorway. It's mechanical. It looks so cool sitting on my desk. So
Ryan, are you a mechanical keyboard guy? No, you've got that. Are you?
Oh
you
yeah,
like
yeah,
well?
absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. So like I'm back on my trusty Corsair K65, but one of the this almost replaced it full time. This was a new Cooler Master keyboard that they had, but it's like an upgraded version with some silicone dampening pads in between the case and the PCB and some really nice like lubricated switches from the factory, PBT plastic keycaps. So it's like just has this so satisfying feel and sound when you're typing on it. You're like, oh, this is nice. And it has that feel and quality without the super premium price that you're going to get on some of those really high-end mechanical keyboards.
Yeah, Jim Shoemaker in chat says backlit keyboards only for me. Best switch I ever made. And that there is something about, especially in a darker work environment, where having backlit is super helpful. I don't I'm old school and I don't have those, but I know my laptop I do. And it was nice. I was on the deck last night. It was starting to get a little dark out there, and you hit that thing and it lights up and you're like, oh, this is actually pretty helpful. So some good stuff. Anything else coming up podcast wise? You guys have been pretty consistent on Wednesday nights. How do folks, like, what time, and how do folks, if they're listening, how do they find you?
Typically every Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. Pacific, which is, what is it?
7:30 Central.
7:30 Central, 8:30 Eastern. We are taking a week off next week because Ryan is going on a vacation.
Good.
So
good for you.
Yeah. So, but yeah, typically it's every Wednesday, like I said, 5:30 Pacific, 8:30 Eastern, 7:30. What do you guys, Central? And then our podcast is usually right around an hour. Sometimes it runs a little bit longer. And then after that, we do a gaming stream as well. And we're on all of your like podcasting applications or websites. You just type in Think Computers, all one word, and we're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. What's the other one? There's a couple other ones. So yeah, we're on all that stuff.
There's like 10,000 different places you can.
Yeah, if you just type in Think Computers, all one word, our website will come up. We have links to the podcast. We have links to our YouTube channel. We have links to Twitch where we do our gaming stream, all of that stuff. So
yeah, no, it's a fun one to listen to. If you're like this one, it's one you can come out and make comments. You guys are really good about paying attention to
sometimes
the comments in.
Bob, not so much.
Yeah, Ryan's there. He gets them for me because I'm not like, it will be and then I don't see them. But
you might be a little hard on yourself. I've always
I think we're
the times I've come out there, you guys have always been pretty good about that. So I'm taking next week off too. So if you're a regular Home Gadget Geeks listener, work calls. This is our big conference that we do, and this year we're back in person and virtual. So we used to be only in person. Then during the pandemic, we were only virtual, and I begged them when they were in person to have a virtual ticket. It's like, please do a virtual ticket, and they wouldn't, and they didn't. And pandemic forced us to do both, so we have an in-person and a virtual ticket this year. And I get to host. I'm the MC of the entire virtual summit, which is kind of super cool. Yeah, it'll be a ton of fun to hang out that way and be there in person. We're setting up a studio in the conference center to be able to, so we'll have the virtual, it'll be labeled the virtual experience. And so we'll be interviewing people in between the breaks and stuff. It'll be kind of fun. I'm looking forward to it, but way too many things to be doing that week to be podcasting next week. So we're going to take some time off and get it done. Ryan, Bob, thanks for, you guys are always great to hang out with. This may be the first one I've come away from with you guys where I'm not spending any money.
That's a good thing.
Yeah. No, I can't think of anything. I'm set from a PC perspective.
I mean, we can give you a list of things to buy. Yeah, we can give you a list of things to buy if you want.
Oh, I'm sure you can, but right now that's good because I just had $6,000 worth of carpet installed in the house. It started today. They're finishing up tomorrow, so it's a big carpet job. This may be the time to buy the robot vacuum cleaner. Just kind of thinking brand new carpet, have that thing running every couple
Ryan,
days.
you have the same one I have, right? You bought this?
Yeah, we both have the Wise.
Yeah, the Wise one.
The Wise one. You guys are happy with them?
Yeah. I haven't had any issues with it. Yeah.
Just vacuums. Does it empty itself?
No. But I mean, you just pop the top up, pull the little canister out, dump it, throw it back in. It's great.
Okay. Yeah. With new carpet. What about upstairs, downstairs?
I only have it on the.
I have one. I live in an apartment, so I don't have upstairs. Downstairs.
You got one floor. That's awesome. I definitely have 2 floors to contend with.
I think there are newer ones that will go like up and down the stairs. I don't know how practical that is, but
no
either. But I would say like, you could definitely use it on both. You could just pick it up and put it upstairs and it will do its thing. Right. I think the price difference between the one that does go up and down it's like $300-$400 difference. It's like not really worth, at least in my opinion. Like I said, you can pick the one up and do that.
What's that one really retailing for now? Do you think that you guys?
I think it's pretty cheap these days. All that stuff has gone down in price.
It was cheap enough where I felt comfortable buying it. I'm usually a pretty big cheapskate. So
no, me too. Well, and we've got we got all this crap.
300.
Okay, that's what I thought.
I think I paid more than that for that because I got it a while back.
$293 right now. Currently sold out. Usually $315.
Okay.
Maybe I paid $300 for it. I don't remember.
Yeah. Or maybe a little over $3. Well, it's always something to think about. There is something satisfying about mowing your own lawn and vacuuming your own carpet and getting the lines just right. Yes. Right. Where the robot vacuum, although some of the new ones will make both vacuum cleaners and mowers will make the lines for you.
The vacuum does for sure. Like it is very nice when it's done and I go in the living room and it's just like straight lines with the perimeter. It looks good.
All right, we'll have to give it a try. Well, you guys are off next week. We're off next week. So, but folks normally you guys are available on Wednesdays, or they can subscribe to the podcast and you'll love that as well. Can you guys hang tight 1 sec while I close this up?
Sure. Yep.
Is that good? Okay. Just a couple reminders on the way out. Remind everyone, if you want to join us in our Discord, and you guys have a really active Discord group, right? Is it for both gaming and for the podcast? Your Discord?
Yeah, we have, and we always like throw, like the other day, I'll throw like random game codes in there, and we announce our contests and things in there as well. So
if they want to join your Discord group, I'm assuming the link's on your site.
Yeah, the link's on the site. It's thinkcomputers.org/Discord. We'll get you right in there.
Perfect. And if you want to jump in our Discord group, theaverageguy.tv/Discord, you can get in there as well. Join both groups. And I'm in there as well. It's fairly active and some great information going on there. If you want to leave us a message, if you got something you want to get on the show, get your voice on the show, head over to homegadgetgeeks.com, and there's a little bottom right hand corner, there's a little microphone. Just put your headset on or microphone, whatever, leave a voicemail. You got 30 seconds, by the way, just a reminder. It only records for 30 seconds. Then send me an email and let me know you've done it, and appreciate it. TheAverageGuy.tv platform, both web and media hosting, powered by Maple Grove Partners. Get secure, reliable, high-speed hosting from folks that you know and you trust, and that's Christian. He's always upgrading, and he always has plans for as little as $10. So if you need a site to do something, contact Christian, get it rolling. He'd appreciate it. MapleGrovePartners.com. We are live every Thursday, well, except next week, 8 p.m. Central, 9 Eastern, out here at theaverageguy.tv/live. And appreciate you guys for Tony, Brian, Jim, Shoemaker, the other Brian. No, just one Brian out there. And Ken, who jumped out a little bit earlier. Thanks for coming out tonight. And we'll see you guys back in 2 weeks. With that, we'll say goodbye, everybody. Gents, thank you.
Yeah, it's fun as always.
Sorry, we couldn't get you to buy anything.
Well, I don't.
It just means we did well when we spec'd out his build.
You did. You did.
It should be, because, like I said, when you build something, like if you build a new PC, it should last you, I would say, at least 2 years, if not 4 or 5. Really, I think for most people it should be 4 or 5.
Yeah. Well, I've run VMs on that already, and I've got some. It has been a solid from a CPU standpoint. It's just been a workhorse for me. It's done a lot of cool things that I'm like, man, I'm glad I've got that, powerful CPU in there. GPU, I could use the GPU more. I just don't play enough games. It's the thing.
Yep.
But it doesn't hurt when I do need GPU power and it's there.
Yeah, for sure.
Deal. So anyway,
Figure out an AI need for it, right? Like generate some images or something, and
there may be a crypto need for it.
Okay.
This Chia cryptocurrency thing that I've been working on, that's hard drive based, they're going to replot, and you can use your memory and your GPU to do all the replotting, and what would normally take months can now take weeks in using them, using RAM and GPU. And so, if I get to that spot, I may just to do it because I can.
Yeah, of course.
So that could pay off there. Ken, who helps me with that, was like, man, I can't wait to do it. I can't wait for you to do it on your computer. It's going to be awesome. So anyways, guys, if you're listening live, thanks for coming out. I'm going to end this because I got a busy weekend and I got to let these guys go too as well. You guys hang tight for me. But live folks, thanks for coming out. We'll see you next 2 weeks. Sorry. We'll see you in 2 weeks.